In 1414, Admiral Zheng He's fleet docked on the shores of China. It was one of the largest maritime expeditions in history, and the ships were returning from Africa. On board, they carried a gift for Emperor Yongle, a live giraffe delivered from the port city of Malindi on the continent's eastern coast. When the animal was paraded through the Forbidden City, something strange happened. The courtiers didn't marvel at it as a curiosity from distant lands. They fell to their knees. They recognized it as a Qilin, a mythical creature from ancient Confucian texts, said to appear only when a truly wise ruler governs the land. The court painter, Shen Du, was immediately ordered to capture the animal, and in his painting, the giraffe's spots transformed into fish scales, just as legends describe the Qilin's skin. The emperor accepted the gift not merely as an exotic animal, but as a sign from heaven, proof that his rule was legitimate and blessed from above. One animal, transported across the ocean, became a political argument, a living symbol of divine right to the throne. But here's what's truly astonishing. The giraffe survived this entire journey, the crossing of the Indian Ocean, months in the ship's hold, the procession through the imperial court, thanks to a body that, by all laws of physics, shouldn't function. And this isn't a metaphor. It's a literal, measurable engineering problem that evolution somehow solved. The giraffe's brain is about 2 to 3 meters above its heart. To pump blood to such heights requires enormous pressure. And it does. Its average standing blood pressure is around 200 millimeters of mercury. That's roughly double that of a healthy human. With such pressure, we'd be diagnosed with a severe hypertensive crisis and placed in intensive care. But for a giraffe, it's just a normal Tuesday. The heart that generates such pressure is over 60 centimeters long. The muscular wall of the left ventricle is so thick that it resembles concrete in density. At rest, this heart pumps about 60 liters of blood every minute, not during running or stress, just to stand and chew leaves. But pressure is only half the challenge. The other half is how not to pass out when lowering its head. Remember what happens when you suddenly stand up from bed and your vision goes dark for a moment? Blood rushes away from the brain, pressure drops momentarily, and you feel a slight dizziness. Now flip that situation. The giraffe lowers its head to drink. Suddenly, the 2 to 3 meters of height that the heart just heroically pumped blood up becomes 2 to 3 meters that blood rushes down, straight into the skull. By all calculations, a giraffe should lose consciousness every time it drinks water. It should suffer a stroke from the pressure in the blood vessels of the brain, but it doesn't. And the secret to this trick is one of the most elegant engineering systems in nature. In the jugular veins of the giraffe, those large veins that carry blood from the head back to the heart, there are 6 to 7 bicuspid valves. They work like backflow preventers in a pipeline, allowing blood to flow in one direction and closing if it tries to flow back. When the giraffe tilts its head, these valves prevent blood from rushing back into the skull under the force of gravity. But that's not all. When the head lowers, the neck veins expand sharply, accommodating over a liter of blood beyond their normal volume. They act like a reservoir damper, absorbing the excess flow and preventing it from crashing into the brain all at once. At the base of the skull, there's another line of defense, a network of small intertwined vessels that anatomists call the wonderful network. It further dissipates and equalizes pressure fluctuations before blood reaches the cerebral arteries. Scientists have known all this for a long time. But recently, a mechanism was discovered that no one expected. It turns out that when a giraffe swallows water, the muscular contractions of the esophagus, the very peristalsis that pushes food down, simultaneously compress the jugular veins from the outside. The esophagus wraps around the veins, and each gulp literally squeezes blood from the neck back to the heart, raising the pressure almost to the level of normal standing. The giraffe drinks water, and the act of drinking protects its brain. Such a mechanism has been found in no other animal on the planet, not a single one. But the giraffe's body doesn't stop there. There's another problem that few consider: its legs. If you have a blood pressure of 200 millimeters of mercury at heart level, then down in the legs, it's even higher. At such pressure, fluid should seep from the vessels into the tissues, causing the legs to swell up, like in people with severe heart failure. But the giraffe's legs are dry and slender because its skin below the knees is incredibly thick and tough. It wraps around the muscles and vessels so tightly that it prevents fluid from seeping out. Essentially, the giraffe is born in natural compression stockings. And here's where a whole different story begins, because this principle, a tight casing that counters excess pressure, is used today in aviation and space medicine. The G-suits worn by fighter pilots and astronauts work on exactly the same principle as the skin on a giraffe's legs. They compress the lower body, preventing blood from pooling in the legs during G-forces, maintaining blood supply to the brain. 21st century engineers designed suits for flights beyond the atmosphere, while the giraffe has been wearing such a suit for millions of years. All of this, a heart the size of a small suitcase, valves in the veins, expanding reservoir vessels, the wonderful network at the base of the skull, the esophagus that massages the veins with every swallow, the compressor skin on the legs, all of it works simultaneously, every second, just so the giraffe can stand, walk, and drink water without losing consciousness. And when you look at this entire system as a whole, one thing becomes clear. The giraffe is not just a tall animal with a long neck. It's a walking challenge to gravity, an organism that evolution has assembled over millions of years, solving problem after problem, layer by layer, mechanism by mechanism. And we haven't even gotten to the neck yet. To the nerve that travels nearly 5 meters to reach a point just a few centimeters from its start. To the tongue that doesn't burn in the sun. To the bones that giraffes crush with their teeth. Giraffes have 7 cervical vertebrae, exactly the same number as you. The same as a mouse, a whale, a sloth, almost any mammal on Earth. It's one of those rules that nature decided for some reason not to break. But there's a nuance. Each cervical vertebra of a giraffe can reach 25 to 28 centimeters in length. One vertebra is the size of an adult man's forearm. 7 such vertebrae stacked on top of each other give the giraffe that neck, allowing it to reach the treetops where it has no competitors. But the craziest thing about this neck isn't the bones. The craziest thing is one specific nerve that runs inside it. And the story of this nerve is perhaps the most vivid evidence of how evolution works that can be found in nature. We're talking about the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Its job is simple: to connect the brain to the larynx so the animal can control its vocal cords, swallow, and breathe. The distance from the brain to the larynx in a giraffe is literally just a few centimeters, all nearby, all in the head area. It seems like you could just stretch a direct wire and forget about it, but no. This nerve exits the brain, descends the entire length of the neck, reaches the chest, loops around the arch of the aorta, the main artery exiting the heart, and then turns around and ascends back up along the entire neck to the larynx. The total length of the path is about 4.5 meters, to reach a point just a couple of centimeters from its starting point. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a glitch. It's a legacy that the giraffe inherited from distant ancestors that lived hundreds of millions of years ago. In ancient fish-like creatures, from which all land vertebrates descended, this nerve took a short, direct route. From the brain past the heart to the gills. Everything was close. Everything was compact. No unnecessary loops. But then, over millions of generations, the neck began to elongate. The heart gradually sank lower in the chest, and the nerve got snagged on the arch of the aorta, like a rope caught on a hook. And every time the neck grew a little longer, the nerve had to stretch along with it, because it couldn't jump over the aorta and create a new route. Evolution can't erase the blueprint and redraw it. It can only refine what already exists. And here's the result: 4.5 meters of nerve tissue for just a few centimeters of distance. This isn't a bug, it's a feature of evolution that always moves forward in small steps and never goes back to redo the design from scratch. By the way, this detour exists in all mammals without exception. In humans, the extra loop around the aorta adds several dozen centimeters to the nerve. In dogs, it's a bit less. No four-legged animal in the entire history of life on Earth has developed a direct route for this nerve. And in extinct sauropod dinosaurs, whose necks reached 14 meters, the recurrent laryngeal nerve is believed to have stretched 28 meters. 28 meters of nerve to connect 2 points separated by a distance of a hand's breadth. Now, the question that arises is, why does a giraffe even need such a neck? Why did evolution stubbornly stretch it upward despite all the engineering challenges with pressure, nerves, and blood supply? Modern science offers two answers, and both seem to be true simultaneously. The first is food. A long neck provides access to leaves at heights unreachable by any other herbivore in the African savanna. This is a colossal competitive advantage. While zebras, antelopes, and buffaloes jostle below, the giraffe calmly dines on the upper floors, where it has no rivals. The second answer is more surprising: sex. More precisely, access to it. Male giraffes use their necks as weapons in ritual fights called necking. They swing their necks and strike each other with their heads, and the one with the longer and heavier neck often wins, earning the right to mate with a female. Generation after generation, females favored those with the most powerful necks, and their genes were passed on. Thus, sexual selection, working alongside food competition, pushed necks higher and higher over generations. And it's worth mentioning the okapi, the only living relative of the giraffe on the planet. The okapi lives in the dense tropical forests of the Congo Basin, looks like a mix between a horse and a zebra, and Western science only learned of its existence in 1901. It's one of the last large mammals described by scientists. The okapi is a living reminder of what the giraffe's ancestors looked like before the savanna forced them to stretch upward. Now, the tongue, 45 centimeters long, dark purple, almost black, flexible enough to wrap around branches and pluck leaves with surgical precision. The dark color isn't a coincidence or decoration. It's melanin, the same pigment that darkens human skin in the sun. The giraffe's tongue spends a huge part of the day, between 16 and 20 hours, exposed to direct ultraviolet rays because that's how long it spends eating. Without melanin protection, the tongue would burn just like human skin does on the beach without sunscreen, only much faster and much more severely. 30 kilograms of vegetation every day. That's what an adult giraffe needs to keep its body functioning. The primary food is acacia leaves. Acacia protects itself with thorns several centimeters long, sharp as needles, but the giraffe doesn't mind. Its thick, viscous, sticky saliva coats the thorns, making them slippery and safe, while its tough lips and long tongue allow it to select leaves between the prickles with surgical precision. The giraffe is a ruminant, like a cow or a deer. It has a 4-chambered stomach and regurgitates already swallowed food to chew it again. The food travels back up the several-meter-long esophagus, and the giraffe methodically chews it again, then swallows it once more. This process goes on almost continuously throughout the day, but there's one detail in the giraffe's diet that sounds completely wild until you learn the reason. Giraffes chew bones. They find dry bones of dead animals on the ground, pick them up, and methodically chew them. This is called osteophagy, eating bones. Giraffes do this not out of hunger or boredom. The plant-based food they consume contains too little calcium and phosphorus to support their massive skeleton. Bones are the only available source of these minerals in the savanna. The giraffe literally builds its skeleton from the bones of others. And there you stand before this animal, with its traveling nerve that loops 5 meters, with a tongue clad in sun-protective melanin armor, with a 4-chambered stomach, and a habit of chewing bones. And you begin to understand that the giraffe is structured so complexly and so unusually that every part of its body deserves a separate conversation. And we haven't even talked about how it sleeps, how much it sleeps, how its spots work as air conditioning, and why it was considered mute, until someone figured out how to listen at the right frequency. For a long time, giraffes were thought to be social loners. They were seen as simply wandering the savanna, sometimes forming random groups, with no attachment to one another. Scientists observed herds whose composition changed daily and logically concluded there's no stable structure, everyone is on their own. It turned out the scientists were wrong. They just weren't looking closely enough or in the right way. When researchers began tracking individual giraffes over months and years rather than days and weeks, the picture changed completely. Yes, the herd composition does indeed change constantly. Giraffes come and go like visitors in a cafe, but there are stable, long-term connections between specific individuals, especially among related females, mothers, daughters, sisters. They stay closer together, often end up in the same group, and help each other raise their young. And here's a detail that made biologists rethink everything they knew about giraffes. Grandmothers. Older females that have long passed their reproductive age and no longer produce their own offspring still remain in the group and actively participate in caring for the grandchildren. Their presence measurably increases the young one's chances of survival. This is called the grandmother effect, and until recently, it was reliably documented only in humans, elephants, and orcas. Now, giraffes have joined this short list. 4 species on the planet where grandmothers are not just old individuals living out their days, but a crucial element of the social system, without which the population functions less effectively. Giraffes are also embedded in the savanna through relationships with other species. This isn't just proximity, it's a mutually beneficial alliance that operates every day. The giraffe sees far. Its height turns it into a living lookout tower. It spots approaching predators from a distance inaccessible to those grazing below. Meanwhile, zebras and antelopes are much better at detecting scents and sounds at ground level. The giraffe is the eyes of the herd, while the others are its ears and nose. When a giraffe stops chewing and stretches its neck, looking at one point, the zebras around it freeze too. They've learned to read its body language, and this skill saves lives for both species. Now, sleep. And here the giraffe again breaks all familiar boundaries. In the wild, giraffes sleep less than 2 hours a day, not continuously, in short bursts, a few minutes at a time. Most of this time they doze while standing, slightly lowering their heads. The deep sleep phase, when a giraffe lies down and rests its head on its back, curling up in an incredible position for such a large body, lasts sometimes literally just a few seconds, not minutes, seconds. A flash of deep sleep, short as a breath, and then back up. Why so little? Because lying down is risky for a giraffe. Getting up takes time, and in those seconds it's vulnerable. Predators know this, so the giraffe sleeps exactly as much as its body and brain can handle without critical consequences, and not a minute more. And this proves something. In zoos, where there are no lions or hyenas, where food comes on schedule and no one attacks from the dark, giraffes sleep lying down for up to 6 hours a day, 3 times more than in the wild. This means that wild giraffes don't sleep little because they don't need sleep. They sleep little because they're afraid. Their sleep is suppressed by fear, squeezed into tiny gaps between wakefulness and anxiety. Interestingly, calves sleep significantly more than adults, and the amount of deep sleep gradually decreases with age, as the young giraffe learns that the world around it is dangerous. Now look at the skin. The giraffe's spots are probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a giraffe. A beautiful pattern, camouflage, the species' calling card. But the spots aren't just a design, they're a cooling system. Under each dark spot runs a dense, branching network of blood vessels. The giraffe can control blood flow to these areas. When it gets hot, the vessels expand. Hot blood rushes to the surface of the skin and releases heat into the surrounding air. Each spot works like a small thermal window through which the body sheds excess temperature. The light gaps between the spots, on the other hand, contain far fewer vessels and act as insulation, retaining heat where it needs to be kept. The entire skin functions as a car radiator, with separate sections for heating and cooling that turn on and off as needed. And one more thing about the spots. The pattern is unique to each individual, like fingerprints in humans. No two giraffes on Earth have exactly the same pattern. Scientists use this in field studies, photographing the skin and identifying specific giraffes by their spot patterns, tracking their movements, social connections, and lifespans without needing to capture and tag the animals. Now, the voice. More precisely, its absence, as was previously thought. For decades, giraffes were considered almost mute animals. They don't roar, moo, or trumpet. They just stand silently and chew. Silence. But the silence turned out to be deceptive. Giraffes communicate. They just do so at frequencies that the human ear can't perceive. They produce infrasonic signals, sound waves so low that they fall below our hearing threshold. We physically can't hear them without special equipment. These waves travel vast distances, passing through trees and shrubs without losing strength. Elephants in the African savanna and whales in the ocean depths communicate in the same way. The giraffe, which seemed to us a mute, is actually having conversations that we simply didn't know how to eavesdrop on. In addition to sounds, giraffes use visual signals. Body position, neck angle, gaze direction, all convey information to those who know how to read it. Alarm, calmness, dominance, submission, all is communicated through posture and movement, like in silent films, only the audience is other giraffes. And finally, the gait. Giraffes walk in a pacing manner. This means they move both legs on one side of their body simultaneously, first both right legs, then both left. Most quadrupeds walk diagonally, left front with right rear, right front with left rear. But a giraffe's body is too short relative to the length of its legs, and with normal diagonal walking, the hind legs would simply collide with the front ones. Pacing solves this problem, turning the giraffe into a strange, swaying giant that glides over the savanna like a ship on calm seas. But when it needs to run, everything changes. In a gallop, the giraffe switches to a completely different coordination, throwing its hind legs outside its front ones and accelerating to 55 kilometers per hour. 2.5 meters of legs, several tons of living weight, and the speed of a car in city traffic. Necking. From the outside, it looks almost beautiful. Two massive males stand side by side, slowly swinging their necks, as if dancing to music that only they can hear. The movements are smooth, almost lazy. But this isn't a dance, it's a fight, and its consequences can be harsh. The males swing their necks like pendulums and strike their heads against each other's bodies. At the top of a giraffe's head are ossicones, bony protrusions covered in skin and hair. They aren't horns in the traditional sense, but they essentially function like a mace at the end of a long lever. Young males have relatively small ossicones, but with age, additional bony deposits begin to grow on the skull, making the head heavier and more lethal over time. An old, experienced fighter carries a real weapon on its shoulders, a head that has become heavier and deadlier with age. The blows during necking are so powerful that they can break bones and knock out opponents. The loser steps aside, and the winner gains access to a female. This is why sexual selection has shaped longer, heavier, and more powerful necks generation after generation, because the neck for a male giraffe is both a weapon and an argument, and the key to continuing the lineage. But the giraffe can do more than just attack. It can defend itself in ways that even Africa's top predator prefers to avoid. A kick from an adult giraffe can kill a lion. This isn't an exaggeration or a legend. It's a documented fact. A hoof the size of a dinner plate, propelled by muscles in a leg that weighs more than the entire lion, strikes with such force that the predator has no chance if it gets caught under this blow. That's why lion prides don't attack healthy adult giraffes alone. They target young, sick, or weakened individuals, acting as a group, trying to bring the victim down and deprive it of its main advantage, the ability to kick. A healthy adult male is too high a price for a pride to pay. Now, birth. And here the giraffe astonishes again. The female gives birth standing up. She doesn't lie down, doesn't seek shelter. She simply stands, and the calf enters the world vertically, head first, falling to the ground from a height of about 1.5 to 2 meters. The fall onto solid African soil is the first thing that happens to a newborn giraffe in life. And this isn't cruelty, it's a mechanism. The impact with the ground severs the umbilical cord and stimulates the first breath. The shock from the fall triggers breathing. Within 30 minutes of that fall, the calf is on its feet. Within a few hours, it can run. In a world where lions, hyenas, and leopards can appear at any moment, a newborn giraffe doesn't have the luxury of lying around and recovering. It either gets up and runs, or it doesn't survive. The females organize something like a nursery. One mother stays on guard with a group of calves, while the others go off to feed. The guarding shifts are rotated, and each female takes turns playing the role of sentinel. Despite this entire system of protection, about half of the young survive to their first birthday. 1 in every 2 calves doesn't make it through the first year. The savanna doesn't forgive weakness. And now, the discovery that turned everything upside down. Until 2016, science believed there was only one species of giraffe on Earth. Just one. With several subspecies that differed in spot patterns and habitats, but still belonging to one biological species. That's how it was recorded in textbooks, how it appeared in databases, how all conservation programs operated. Then, geneticists from the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and the Senchenberg Biodiversity Center conducted a large-scale DNA analysis of giraffes from different populations across Africa, and the result was such that it required rewriting the classification. 4 species, not subspecies, species. The Maasai, northern, reticulated, and southern giraffes are 4 genetically distinct animals that diverged from each other so long ago that the differences between them are comparable to those between brown bears and polar bears. They look similar, live on the same continent, but genetically, they are so different that lumping them together as one species is like calling a wolf and a fox the same animal just because they both have 4 legs and a tail. In 2025, the special group of the International Union for Conservation of Nature on Giraffes and Okapis officially recognized this 4-species classification. The new map of giraffe life finally became official. And here's where the most troubling part of this story begins. While all giraffes were considered one species, their total population, about 117,000 individuals, seemed more or less acceptable. Not brilliant, but not catastrophic either. But when you divide those 117,000 into 4 separate species, the math becomes entirely different. 3 out of 4 species turn out to be endangered, and some subspecies, the Nubian giraffe, the West African giraffe, number only in the hundreds, not thousands, not tens of thousands, hundreds of living beings, separated from total extinction by a thin line. Over the past 30 years, the giraffe population has decreased by 30%. This happened quietly, without headlines, without loud campaigns, without cover photos in magazines. All the world's attention was focused on saving elephants from poachers with tusks, on protecting rhinos from horn hunters. Meanwhile, giraffes were disappearing in the shadows, unnoticed, without a sound. Biologists named this phenomenon silent extinction, an extinction that occurs before everyone's eyes, but no one notices because no one is shouting. The main causes are habitat loss, fragmentation of territories, where continuous savanna is sliced by roads, fields and settlements into isolated islands that giraffes can't move between, and poaching. Not for trophies and not for horns. Giraffes have nothing that sells for tens of thousands of dollars on the black market. But meat, skin, and the tail with a tuft, which in some cultures is considered a status symbol, are worth just enough for someone to pick up a gun. Recognizing 4 separate species isn't just an academic correction in classification, it's a chance. Because now each species can be protected specifically, taking into account its particular territory, its specific threats, its unique genetic makeup. You can't save what you can't distinguish, but the window of opportunity is narrowing every year. The giraffe is an animal that has defeated gravity, turned its skin into a spacesuit, and its esophagus into a pump for veins. An animal with a nerve 5 meters long, a tongue and solar armor, and skin that functions as a climate control system. An animal that sleeps for just a few seconds at a time, communicates at frequencies below our hearing, and is born falling from a 2-meter height onto solid ground. It would be a shame to find out that we lost all this while looking the other way. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and liking the video.